What's up, everyone? My name is Wes, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. In today's episode, I talked with all 5 members of the indie rock band Gowns. Earlier this year, they released their debut album, Revelations. We got to chat about the evolution of their songwriting process, the challenges and highlights of making the record, and a whole lot more. Without any further ado, here's my interview with John, Zach, Evan, Andrew, and Brian of Gowns on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are you doing on this Tuesday night? I don't know why I thought it was a Wednesday.
Doing great.
Good.
Love you.
Yeah.
Can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, finally. So just to get things started, I would love for everyone to just briefly introduce themselves. What's your name? What's your role in the band? And we can take it from there.
Take it away, buddy.
Hi, I'm John. I sing the songs and am kind of the punching bag of everybody else in the band. Emotionally, that is. Emotionally, you know.
It'd be weird if it was physical. That'd be an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Not out of the question.
I'm Andrew Oakland. I play the bass. I'll make it go boom, boom.
Nice.
I'm Evan Willie. I play the guitar, and that's about it.
I'm Zach Reif, play the drums.
I'm Brian Stanley. I play the guitar as well, and I'm the primary puncher of John Bear.
Emotionally.
You sounded a little too proud of that, so maybe you need some band therapy after this, but don't let me be the final judgment. Cool. Nice to meet all of you. I find that pretty much everyone who goes the extra distance to record music, play music live, and do all of the things that come with being in a band have had a really strong connection with music just as a listener for quite some time. So I'm curious, and we can kind of just go as many of all 5 of you want to share. Did each of you kind of grow up around music, have musical childhoods, and even if you didn't really get involved in music until later, what were the first bands or artists that really connected with you and made you kind of realize how, like, wow, this is the best thing ever. I love this so much, and kind of was that first step into the journey of becoming a musician and being in a band and everything that comes with that. And we can kind of keep the same order, but whatever y'all are feeling, I'm cool with.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, we'll go the other way, I guess, huh? Or do you want to start, John?
Oh.
Okay.
Whatever, Brian. Whatever, man. Yes, it's your decision. Are you sure? All right. So yeah, this is John. I was born in West Virginia in a very conservative Christian Southern gospel kind of environment. My mother was on the radio when she was 5 years old. They had to put her on a table. She remembers just like being on a table to like sing into the microphone. And yeah, I grew up in that environment and sang a lot in church. And then somewhere around like 14 years old, I found Coldplay and I found Viva La Vida. And I thought I was going to hell for listening to it, but I couldn't not listen to it. So anyway, that's kind of what got me into music and away from probably the better wishes of my parents.
I'm right there with you.
Coldplay?
Yeah, do it. Coldplay like Maroon 5 and getting me out of like that
Awesome.
Christian background.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
This is Andrew. That's my name. I grew up in North Dakota. I got into music from my dad. He played the organ in the Navy, and he also played the French horn. I never heard him play the French horn, but he likes to talk about it.
Hell yeah. We're learning new things here.
Yeah. But yeah, he played the organ, so we always had some sort of keyboard in the house, and I just like playing it, and I've always just enjoyed having it in my life. And yeah, it definitely stems from my dad. He was really into rock music and a little bit of like Stevie Wonder, so I have some funk and soul stuff. But yeah, that's how I got playing.
This is Evan. That's my name. I also played the French horn starting in 5th grade.
Hey.
I did not know this.
just the French horn is awesome. And yeah, I played that, and then I joined jazz band once I got into high school. I played guitar for that. So, but I wasn't really into jazz that much, but I was really into like any alternative indie lo-fi music. So when I was 15, I joined my first band, and we were like a lo-fi project. I grew up here in Minneapolis, by the way. And yeah, I started with doing that, played a couple of gigs here and there for a while, and then did some other bands after high school, but then I joined Gowns, and I've been here ever since.
This is Zach. I, like Andrew, also grew up in North Dakota. Music for me, I guess like a lot of people, it just your parents playing it all the time. Grew up with like the classic Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, Metallica, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and then for my mom's side, it was the like the Cars and the Bangles and Replacements, stuff like that. So I've always had a passion for music. Throughout school, it was mostly sports for me. So my taste really opened up in college, I think, and that's kind of where everything expanded. And I was like, well, don't have sports now, so what do I do? Got to be busy, do something new, right? And started watching YouTube videos, bought a crappy electronic drum kit, and just started learning how to play. And then from there, I actually met Brian and a couple other buddies in school. Up at NDSU, and we had a little band going for a while called Monday Night. Everyone kind of split ways and went to different states out of college, so that broke up, and then I was here for about a year or so and found John on Craigslist, and yeah, we're a Craigslist band, baby.
Craigslist band,
yeah. We're proud, man. We need patches. But yeah, found John, found Evan actually before I met up with John, and Evan came on a little bit later, but yeah, really ever since high school, music has kind of been the focus of life for me.
And this is Brian. I feel like Zach and I have pretty similar stories in a lot of ways, where a lot of the music influence didn't start until like middle of high school, late high school. Listening with your parents to all the stuff that they ever listened to. And then I joined choir as like my first music venture. I was in choir all the way throughout college. A lot of listening to like Hippocampus was a really big influence for me, like late high school. Classic rock's always been huge for me. Phoenix and like Vampire Weekend, that kind of stuff. The voice really spoke to me in my later years of school. And then me and Zach met, had a band going Monday Night. Fell apart. Was in some cover bands through the years, and then moved to Minneapolis a little over a year ago, and joined Gowns like pretty much right when I moved here. A few weeks after, and the rest is history.
I do want to backtrack 1 second. I forgot an important detail. So I did aspire to be a musician in grade 4, and I tried out for the drums. Music teacher, not a huge fan of what I had to offer. Said I couldn't keep a beat. So as a kid, when you hear that, you're kind of ruined, right? You're like, well, that's never going to happen. So I'm like, what do? I get aggression, right? I go start Taekwondo. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to do this. I jump into football, get more aggressive. So much angst listening to Linkin Park and like Slipknot and all that stuff. So I think at this point, I want to thank that music teacher, wherever you are.
Call him out. Give us a shout out.
Yeah, it was a rough start, but I'm happy with where it's at now.
I mean, how good can you expect a 4th grader to be at drums? Like, what's the standard?
That's what I'm saying. He's like, you want to go do trumpet? And I was like, no.
It's like, oh
Absolutely
my God.
not.
I want to hit stuff. Come on.
In retrospect, I wish I would have, honestly. I mean, if I could have started with trumpet or piano, that probably would have been setting myself up a little bit better, but I was like, nah, I'm going to go break some bones and play sports.
Yeah.
Try French horn.
Yeah, French horn.
You've already kind of touched on this, and to get into the aforementioned history, how did Gowns actually start, at least initially form? Because I know there's been at least a handful of lineup changes over the years and different members kind of coming and going and eventually arriving at the current quintet that we have in front of me. So yeah, just kind of talk about a little bit about how the band initially got started, even before the Hollows came out? And then how did the five of you kind of come together as that group? And feel free to re-mention Craigslist and the Monday night and all the stuff we've kind of hinted at.
My five-star sausage.
I feel like you three are going to.
Yeah, totally. Well, so I actually moved from West Virginia from college, and I came out here with my girlfriend at the time, and and anyway, we actually were in a band, and it it really didn't work out. Like, if you think about like things not working out, I think like the extreme like of things not working out, like that's what happened. And then so I was like literally like kind of unhoused and for like a summer, and I was really lost and like just had so many questions about myself, and but I was pushing it, and I just started feeling the Craigslist thing out, and I got in touch with so many weirdos, some of which ended up being in the band to start out with. Good guys, including Zach. I'd like to put in, but so that's so Zach, I don't know what your experience was meeting me on Craigslist.
It's pretty similar. Got here and didn't know where to start. Didn't know very many people here when I moved, and the people I did know weren't into music like that. So a lot of Craigslist, a lot of swings and misses. I was up to bat probably like 6 or 7 times and struck out every single time. And eventually I did meet up with Evan, and we had another guy we were jamming with, and somehow right in front of my eyes, Evan kind of got pushed out of that equation. Which unfortunately, I mean, it fizzled out regardless, but eventually, I'm back to square one, and I find John's posting, and I think Charlie actually reached out to me and talked to me about it, and Charlie was one of the first guitarists here. But yeah, we started jamming a little bit, played some strokes, and then we were looking for another guitarist, and I'm like, hey, I got this guy, he's great. I truly don't know what happened, why he's not with me right now. And along came Evan. Not that long after I met up with John, I'd say about a month, maybe less. So that's how us three got here. Evan, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know why I got kicked out of the band. I didn't really get kicked out of the band. I just remember them, whoever
I was forced.
organizing.
I was coerced.
And they were like, we should cover this song. And I was like, I don't really like that song. I can't remember what song it was, but I really didn't like it. I was like, I voiced my opinion, and then he kept saying that I played country style. I was like, I don't play country. I'm not playing country. I made one bend, and he was like, why? Like, that's country. Like, I am not playing country. And then
That was enough for him.
He's enough for him. He didn't like me. I don't know. Zach and me up. Come on, stairs.
It all worked out. There's strange paths, in life, and it seems to always find its way back. What will be will be. But yeah, we went through a couple guitars, couple bassists, just trying to find the right fits, and eventually we found ourselves last summer down 2 members. And I knew at the time that Brian was a fantastic bassist, guitarist, singer. And I thought, what an addition it would be if we could make that work. And he moved down. There was a lot of interest on his part, both parties, and he jumped in, and we were kind of in the studio at that time. So it was a unique time for him to hop in. But his contributions right away were fantastic, and obviously my rapport with him was great. A lot of history there, and him, John, and Evan seemed to hit it off as well. And not shortly after that, probably about a year, maybe a little less, Andrew, who knows Brian pretty well, went to school together. Kind of the same alley happened. Brian brought on Andrew, and it's been great. I think we got the right group of guys, and it's been a lot of work to try and figure it out. But I think we're in a pretty good place now, and hopefully we can focus on other things moving forward. Band turnover is never fun. It's a lot of carpet being pulled out, steps back.
Reinventing.
Yeah. That's good to figure out how everybody's coming together. Kind of jumping back there since we got to the more recent arrival of Andrew on the scene, but jumping back to even before the Hollows came out, because the Hollows was the first EP the band put out, just 3 songs put out in March of 2020, right before literally everything happened, and we'll just kind of not get into that much. But when you were first with that group of musicians putting together those songs, were those songs that the band had been working on for a little while since kind of initially forming in earlier in 2019, or even just like a little while before that? And what was the process like putting those songs together and eventually ending up with the recorded versions? Just, I'd love to hear a little bit about that initial release and kind of how everything was moving and shaking around that time with those first 3 songs that y'all put out under the Gowns moniker.
Cool. Yeah, so I think November of 2018 is about when the song started to take shape. Would you say this? Yeah, around
Last
there.
3 years are a blur.
It's been a ride. But yeah, I think November of 2018 is when we first started getting together, and Carry On was kind of pre-built a little bit because it was just a song that came to me in this, very stressful time before Gowns, but it was still finding itself a lot through Gowns. So Carry On kind of came with, for the most part, at least like the lyrics into the band, but then everything else on the album was written within this band. And I think it took about 10 months, 11 months of we were rehearsing and just trying to find our sound and finding what made us similar. And those songs just kind of sloppily came together, and then we were kind of giving them tons of space. And then our guitarist at the time, Charlie, said that he was leaving to work with the Detroit Lions. Detroit Tigers and Lions and Bears. Which is it?
It's the Tigers.
Tigers.
Lions are mine.
Okay, Detroit Tigers. So yeah, he gave us 3 weeks notice, a month notice, something like that.
Pretty quick, yeah.
It was a quick turnaround. So we were like, holy crap, we have to find money. We have to find the studio. We have to really write these songs through, And yeah, Matt Patrick from the Library Recording Studio in Northeast, Zach and I went and interviewed with him, just try to feel out the place. And we thought it sounded great, and we loved working with him. He really helped us to flesh those songs out last minute. Zach, do you remember a moment in the studio? Evan, do you remember a moment in the studio where you were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to work out"?
Yeah, I think it was the recording style that we chose to go with. Was what's it called? When you're doing it live.
We tried to do a full band
Live recording.
right away, full band all at once. Yeah, it just didn't work, especially with songs like Lighthouse. Good luck. That was one that when we were recording it and actually going through the tempos and everything, I was like, oh God, what did we write? How is this even possible? There's tempo changes in the song itself, so that was pretty interesting to figure out.
Yeah, and I think the first time we ran through a song, we were like, oh God, this is gonna be bad. But we pulled it together.
Yeah, it was new for me. I mean, I had done some home studio recording with Monday Night, but it's in a professional setting like that with a producer, it's a lot different, and it can take a little bit time to get comfortable too in a new studio and stuff like that. But it worked out. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of learning. The curve was a little bit rough at first, but I think we caught on pretty well and learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like, so John, you kind of brought the songs to the table, is the core ideas and the lyrics, and do you kind of normally form the songs initially and then have the band kind of fleshes them out with adding their parts and adding their specific skill sets, or at least initially during that era of the band? Just kind of thinking back.
I think we become more democratic over time. I think at the beginning, Carry On especially, I think Carry On was the song that I wrote the progression and wrote the lyrics, and then but the composition itself really found itself within Gowns, because I remember I wrote probably 10, 8 verses and I couldn't figure out that like that was bad, and so I was working with accounts, and you know, I mean, everybody loves a 7-minute like song with the same verse over and over, but you know, yeah. So I think that like it was just a really awkward thing as like I tried to be a primary songwriter, and it's just, you know, I learned a lot because like I'd never been in this world of like being in a band and like having a band I play with like a lot, and like also trying to write lyrics and things like that. But like over time, like things have become so democratic, and like you know, like we write together. Like we, Timepiece is a great example of just like Evan had a riff and it was sick, and then Zach laid down some drums, and Brian laid down this, laid down bass, and then yeah, the song was born, and we had a lot of like conversations about lyrics and collaboration, and that's how we write. You know, now like we are anarchists. No artists.
Yeah, I think it's just changed a lot. I would say definitely at the beginning, I think John had a Google Drive full of seeds that he had been working on for quite a while, and to start, like he said, Carrie Ann was all but finished. Really, there was a lot of it done. But as we started to move on, you know, we have this drive full of seeds that John brings to the table for that first year and a half or so. We're kind of just cherry picking riffs and vocals that we like, and trying to figure out how to have them come together. And I mean, even Sleepover, I think I was away on business when you guys wrote Sleepover. And I came back and they're like, you got to do drums for this track. I was like, hell yeah, this thing slaps. And Lighthouse, I don't even know what that is. Like that kind of just happened.
I don't even know.
You know where that was initially written was beside the neurological center, beside the Guthrie Theater. It was June, and they had a piano outside. Like that's where the progression like happened. Yeah. So anyway, that's where that was.
But it has changed quite a bit, I would say, and we're still trying to figure that out. To be
It's
frank.
naturally growing as all y'all continue to work together. Yeah. With those first couple songs and just with that EP, just again disregarding anything pandemic related that you would not have been able to foresee when you kind of just picked that release date and were gearing up to put that out. What were you hoping to get out of that first EP? Because even a first EP or first release is always just such a huge thing for any band. And there's kind of the anecdote, like you have forever to write your first release or album. And then once you put that out, then you're kind of on a schedule, even if it's just like internal. So what was kind of the mindset with putting that out? What were you hoping to get out of that? Just on your end, kind of, again, disregarding any unfortunate timing that you had no way of knowing about or such, anything like that.
To put it in one word, I'd say momentum. I think we were just looking to really come out with a bang and start playing shows. And the release show was a great time. It was an awesome crowd, and people were dancing, and you know, that's what you love about live music and being a musician. And you know, we had 2 or 3 shows lined up, and we're just starting to book out for the summer, hopefully. And obviously everything happened, so it kind of came to a screeching stop. So I think momentum was what we were going after, and I think we were getting there. But you're right. It threw everything off track, and it just, like for everyone everywhere doing anything, it just it was abrupt and tough to adjust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I know a lot of the time when I talk to bands when they first plan a release, it's just like, hey, I just want to be able to send something to venues or house shows when booking, so they know what we sound like instead of just kind of guessing or trying to like do like indie rock or something like in quotes or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that too. I mean,
I think for me, I was just trying to write a song, find the songs within this band, because like, you know, it's easy to jam for 15 minutes, you know, as a band, but what can you say no to so much that you can cut all the fat off, and it's like 3.5 minutes, and like, what is that statement at the center, you know? So for me, it was just about finding the song, you know, within this, within us.
So following that, over the course of like the last year and a half or so, roughly estimating, the band has just put out a string of singles, the 4 songs, Castles, Logotherapy, Imaginary Numbers, and Left Behind. All songs that ended up on the album, but were released kind of without the pretension of being singles, quote unquote, for the album. Like just kind of when I was looking back through like social media posts, like y'all were very open about the fact that you were working on an album, that's what everything was kind of pointing towards. But it didn't really feel like a formal rollout, especially given just kind of you're just putting out singles every like 4 to 6 months or so. So with those songs and just kind of that unique release schedule, were they always going to end up on the album, or were you just putting out songs as you released them, just kind of engage with people, give listeners a little treat every once in a while, and just say, hey, we finished the song, here you are, enjoy it. Just kind of talk a little bit about that, because I think that's just kind of an interesting approach, whether it was intentional or not, to putting out singles, I guess, if you can call them that, or I guess songs that would end up on the album eventually. Just kind of share a little bit about that as you were working on the album, working on those 4 songs specifically.
Sure. Yeah, I would say it was a little unorthodox. I think the intention, in a perfect world, the singles would have been closer together. But as you know, the last year was challenging, and it was a lot of back and forth trying to find time with studio, with Jack Vonderchek at Tangerine, and he's really busy, and it was just in the middle of having a child, so it was a lot of schedule conflicts, right? And making sure everyone felt comfortable, and we got to a place where we could really hammer down. So it was, I think that combined with, once Castles was finished, we're like in this weird state, just like every other band, right? We don't have anything going on. We can't promote shows. We can't go out play. We can't do anything really. So what can we do? And that's share some new music, right? That's kind of all we had left at that point in terms of true like give and take and interaction with fans. They were all the songs were always going to be on the album that we released as singles. Again, in a perfect world, I think we have that timeline rolled out a little bit better, but you know what? It was a little unorthodox, but so was the last year. So
yeah,
that's kind of just
no judgment. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, you're good. But yeah, it was strange, but it was kind of just like, we wanted to make sure that we gave enough time before each single to give heads up to places like Spotify and radio stations and et cetera, to give us the best shot we can have at getting featured or played wherever it may be. But yeah, I think it wasn't intentional, but that's just kind of how it turned out.
Yeah, to add to that too, every single song that was released as like a single, quote unquote, had a visual paired with it. So we released the song, and then we had X amount of time. You can walk by. You can walk this way. Oh, we had like X amount of time to really focus on collaborations with other artists, visually speaking. Some of them didn't work out, but the ones that did were wonderful to work with. But that ate up a lot of time in between releases, because we'd have a song release and then we'd have a video release. So what looks like 4 months for a song is actually 2 pieces of content spread between those months.
We learned a lot.
Yeah.
We'll be better next time, we promise, Les.
As you were just writing and recording when you could, but primarily, I guess, like writing and working together as the band and putting together all the songs that would end up as the album, or end up on the album, excuse me. What stood out about those 4 tracks that made you want to put them out in advance of the album, and just kind of, this song we think is really cool, let's release it so fans can, like listeners and like radio stations, and we can do all the things that come with that, and also like work with these visual artists. What about those 4 songs caught your ears, just even compared to the other, I guess 3, I think it is, main songs, not kind of like the interludes, that ended up on the album? Just what made those 4 songs special to each of your ears as you were figuring out what to put out and what your next step was?
I think that they were essential in like the strictest sense of the word, like of the essence of Gowns. Castles was kind of our first like anthem, like, just something that you could almost imagine being played in a stadium or something like that. And like Left Behind was very creative, and it took you into these different, it was very like atypical like structure, and like, just took you to these different places. And like part of it feels like it's in space. It was kind of weird, and like that captured that kind of essence of like a Lighthouse. And it was almost a through line of like, there's these pop songs that could be anthems, but there's also like this weird kind of interesting element. We are artists. I would like to think, and then I would say that's it. It kind of showed the essence of our creativity and of our ambitions.
The full range of Gowns possibility.
There's a bit. It hits all ends of the spectrum, I think, with those 4 songs.
Yeah. Kind of shifting into talking about the album writ large, the full project, but still talking about those 4 songs. What was the timeline for writing all of those, specifically those 4, but even kind of getting into the other tracks on the album? Were these all songs kind of written post Hollows, or were they, you mentioned like the Google Drive, just kind of pulling riffs and melodies and things that caught your ears over time and using those to flesh out songs and create ideas as a group, and that more democratic kind of mindset to songwriting? But yeah, just kind of what was the timeline for those over that year and a half that the singles were kind of coming out, and I guess even especially before that, as you were really laying down the bones for these songs and first kind of conceptualizing them?
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but Paper Hearts is kind of an OG song. I think that's been around since like pretty much the beginning.
I think it was like March of 2019.
Yeah,
The Adam Bomb 2 that got dropped.
It's been around for a while. It's gone through various changes. Logotherapy too. Logotherapy's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Oh
that
my
song
gosh.
is nothing like it was in 2019.
So Jack wrote the chorus, by the way.
Jack helped. And then I think 17 Hours was post Hollows, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful seed brought to us by Evan. He had a big hand in that one. And then Imaginary Number, Left Behind, Timepiece were all written, I guess, from last summer until we released it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are all pretty new, as well as the interlude and the outro. Same story there. So there's a couple stragglers from Old Gowns, and then we kind of started taking our roots from that and trying to shift and form our future, whatever. Lord knows what that is. But yeah, a couple of them were leftovers. I think Paper Hearts was originally intended to be on the EP, actually, and we got talked out by a producer at the time, which we're fine with. I think at that point it wasn't as ready as it was in studio. So blessing in disguise, I guess. Don't ask me how I felt that day. No, but yeah, a couple stragglers, and then the bulk of it, I think, was stuff that we wrote in the last
More recent kind of, writing with the current unit of Gound, at least pre-Andrew, I suppose.
Yeah, Andrew hasn't done anything yet.
Wow, that was brutal.
Still
You say the quiet part loud.
Every day.
Especially as you were locking in kind of the musical direction that you wanted to take on Revelations, especially given, like you mentioned, that some of the straggler songs just grew a lot over the couple of years that they existed and were kind of being tinkered with and worked on. What were some of your primary inspirations when you were either just writing the lyrics, putting together the music? Because it's just kind of, whenever I listen to Gowns, it's always just very anthemic kind of indie rock, where it's familiar, but just kind of, it stands out because of the execution more so than anything else. But that's just my ears. I'm just one person. So I'm curious kind of what was going through your heads as you were kind of locking in the parts and all of the different elements that would make each song what it was, I suppose.
Our influences change every day.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah.
That's fair.
We'll like all get on the same page. We're like, yeah, we need to be more artists. Like, yeah, like, forget the expectations. Like, the replacements. Like, I don't know.
What about Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like,
not.
then the next day, like someone will come in and they're like, yeah, we need to be like more corporate and like, cool and like, sell out like 1975 or like, I don't
Not that they sold out. But.
know. And I'm
They were always on a major label. They're fine.
Yeah. But these like bands that like kind of come in with the expectation of being on a stage, and regardless if they sell out or not, because it could be an artistic expression that you like want to play with a lot of people, I guess. So But anyway, we changed. Zach's right. Like we change on a daily basis, and I think even within the album, we had like visions for the entire album. I would say Dream, Tears for Fears.
Yeah, a lot of 80s like power pop and early 2000s alternative, and Evan enlightened me a lot with new wave, and we took a bunch of that into the writing as well, and obviously that like the heavy hitters of the 2000s, like Strokes and Killers.
I think that's in our blood.
Yeah.
That's been since the beginning.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I literally before this band, I never listened to the Strokes or the Killers, and I still really haven't listened to anything by the Strokes or the Killers. But
That's cancelable offense. Wow.
Compare to the Killers, and I think it's an accurate comparison, but. I mean, I don't know what they do.
People say I sound
for
like
the best though, that you
Yeah.
listen.
yeah. Well, people say I sound like Brandon Flowers, and like I've never listened to like the Killers. Like for I've heard like Mr. Sunshine,
Mr. Brightside, come on, man.
I think this is a lie.
Billy and Dreams. Come on.
Well, I didn't do most of those.
Anthem. One of the best. I can't even.
Yeah. We do have our references for the entire album. Then we had an individual treatment too. Like Paper
Yeah.
Hearts is so different from Castles in its execution. So like I don't know, Paper Hearts we had mentioned like the Growlers, some of these beach goth bands at one point.
Yeah.
With Castles we were like pulling from Tears for Fears. Maybe like the band Camino, 1975, with some of the production elements and things like that.
Yeah. Thinking of the album as a whole, how do you conceptualize the full thing? Like thinking of like, here is what our end result is going to be and what it's going to look and sound like. How did that change over the course of the year or so that you were working on it? At least like really intently working on it, even if some of the songs came from a prior time. Just how did that idea of what this album would look like before it really even locked in, how did that change over the process of writing and eventually recording and just kind of putting everything together and ending up with what we now are able to listen to any time of day?
Yeah, that's a great question. We can unpack all of it at some other time. Really, I think one of the things we floated back and forth quite a bit over the past year was how do we, I mean, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, some of the songs are kind of from earlier Gowns and a lot of them are from new. So we tried to, how can we fit these all together without it sounding like two different albums as best as we can? And I think what we decided was, let's put this new kind of pop rock twist on some of these older, more underground, like alternative rock style songs, and see if we can get there to be some like common ground or happy medium between that like old style of more like more lo-fi, I guess, rock that we were doing into this new adding a flash of production onto it. But I think one way to sum it up, the album itself and how we look at it, is progression as a band, and kind of going from what we were over the past 2 years into the future and the last year, and how much we've changed. And I think, when you listen all the way through, you can at least, I mean, obviously it's easy for us, but you can kind of tell, like, okay, this one seems like it's a newer one, or this one seems like, hey, those two jerks that left the band, Zeke and Charlie, they probably had a hand in this one, huh? But no, it's I think progression and growth is a really good way to sum that album up. And Revelations is just a cool word. So
Also, I mean, those revelations and like finding ourselves.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And also, it's kind of feels like the end of days right now in general.
There's a biblical push behind it, just a little.
With like the title Left Behind and Revelation, I'm like, is this just gonna be like a Christian concept record? Like, what's going on here?
No concept. But we just the word is so it's so diverse, and like there's a lot of meaning to the word revelations, and I think it's a beautiful word to describe a lot of different things. And like John said, the end of days type feel we had, and having revelations, as and we're all in a transitional period in life, coming out of college and going into the real world, so to speak. You're going to have some revelations like, oh shit, I missed college or something. You know what I mean? Like,
We had different experiences in college.
College was great, man. But no, I think it's a progression. I think it's kind of a summation of like where we were, where we are now, and where we're going, is kind of what it ended up being, I believe.
Yeah. You already kind of answered this, but I'm just kind of curious if maybe the phrasing will change a little bit. Do you think that spending so much time on the album and just like being able to work on it for so long, do you think that was like, do you think there would have been like a version of the album that you could have finished like 6 months ago and put out and still been happy with? Or do you think that, no, you needed every single day and minute spent working on it over the past like year and a half, 2 years to really make it the best possible album that Gowns could put out, that each of you can be as proud of, or I guess the most proud of? And just like, do you think that the time spent working on it and just really grinding on it, songwriting, recording, and everything that comes with it, do you think it was entirely beneficial, or were there points where you might have felt like this is ready to put out and I don't really know why we're still working on it? Or I think I kind of know what the answer is, since you just sound like it was just a constant progression, which is good to hear. But I'm curious if you have any additional thoughts kind of in that regard.
I think for me, maybe it's a little bit less about the time and the person. So with Jack, things did go a little bit slower, but I think we had Jack, and we had Jack for a reason. There's a great connection between us and him, and his working style and ours, and our vision and how he understands that vision. And I think once we had that, we found like a whole new way of doing things within his studio, like under his wing, and having him there. I don't think based off of our first recording, I think we all thought like, hey, we can probably knock this album out in like 2 weekends or something. You know what I mean? Like 4, 5, 6 days. That's not how it ended up, believe it or not. But no, it did take a lot of time, and I don't know, to answer your question directly, I don't know if we could have gotten the same result that we did in less time necessarily. And if so, at
least like active time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like scheduling conflicts, I think that was like the biggest thing of why it took so long, I think. There was a lot of, not even really downtime, but time where we could like use just in our practice space.
Well, I'll work in full-time jobs too.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
It's a lot of planning and scheduling.
Right. But I agree, Zach. I don't think that.
The more people you have in a band, the harder it is to schedule anything.
Yeah. Especially when you're trying to be democratic.
Yeah.
We all like
having that collaborative approach. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think that too, on that note, reinventing ourselves is every time is just like, it's been so hard. Like we've had to like a phoenix, like rising from the ashes. That's been us like multiple times, and like as we're going into the studio, like Brian, like we missed 2 people, and then Brian just hopped on. So like there's so much that was missing from our sound, and that had to be reinvented. And Brian had to just like come up with stuff on the spot. And yeah, I mean it was really it was a challenge.
And Evan too, filling in a second guitar spot. And,
Yep.
Like figuring out what was played. And,
Right. Yeah. I just like had to, because Charlie had already written some of the parts, and I just decided to steal them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's stealing, but borrowing.
His name's on there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another kind of broad question, and I'm almost especially interested to hear what Andrew has to say, just as someone who primarily was introduced just kind of by listening to the songs and then has now had to learn them once they've all been written. But what is each of your like favorite kind of part or moment on the final album? If you just pulled it up on Spotify right now, what would be the part that you would want to show someone best, that you like first, that you're most proud of just as an individual? And it doesn't have to be your own part or something that you did, but just what's your favorite moment on the album? And kind of a tie-in question, what was each of your individual, I guess, biggest challenge when you were either playing or writing and recording and just the album over that entire process and progression of putting everything together? And just a highlight, and not even necessarily a low light, but just a challenge.
I'm going first. Okay, so
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I did.
My favorite part of the album for sure is right when the first time the chorus drops in on Logotherapy. Like the first few times I heard that, I just was like screaming it in the car. So I'm sure people thought I was nuts, but I love that. I don't think it's just like a really infectious chorus. It's just it's such a nice anthem. And then I think the biggest challenge after hearing all of them and then trying to play it is trying to stay true to the vision that they all made, and also try to feel like I'm still playing like myself and adding, the part musically that is me, that isn't necessarily maybe not what they were thinking when they wrote it, but like something I think adds, that's something nice and that's something that's true to me. Yep.
Biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge. I think I think that the biggest challenge was so like I have a really interesting schedule with my work. I work for 80 hours straight and then I get 11 days off. And yeah. So really it's almost like I don't have a job for 11 days. And in that time, I'm writing, I'm, exploring myself as, as an artist. Like I'm like doing all these things in these notebooks I have. Mario Kart, Sonic, just in the boxers.
Potato chips, dude, it's awesome.
But for real, I'm always like doing like art outside of, on the daily, outside of the 80 hours. And so that equates to 3 days and 3 nights. And, but outside of that, like it's all art for me. And so like, I think the biggest challenge that I have is like, how do I continue to push myself as an artist and then bring myself into a democratic experience in a way that I can step back and like, not like try to force all the crap I came up with in 11 days. How do I like leave that at home and then just bring the skills that I learned in that time and bring that here with a blank slate? Because I think most artists they want to possess, and I just was reading the Lao Tzu today, but like how can you make without possessing? And that was the hardest thing to learn, is like, how do I come in without possessing anything and just start creating with people. Yeah.
And just since we're still on you, John, did you have a favorite moment on the album, or just guess part that you feel most proud of, just as either a listener or as a performer? Just a real highlight for your ears.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, it's so hard.
It might vary just depending on what day it is or what time it is. This is not a hard and locked in or anything like that. Don't worry.
I think the moment for me that like just the magical moment for me, I think, was hearing Castles on the radio from The Current, and then also 103CR in West Virginia. And I won't ever get those moments out of my brain, I don't think. You know, like I will die just like remembering hearing Castles, being introduced on the radio, the excitement, and then just hearing that first, you know, synth build up and the drums come in. Like that moment is so special to me. So I think that for me has to be just the most magical from the album.
Well, I can't top that, Ann.
Not a competition.
Yeah. I guess challenges, like, I don't know. Like, I went through a lot of personal challenges, but I don't want to say too much about that. So I guess musically, like, the one thing that was most challenging for me is that we'd incorporate a lot of feedback into the music, which was like not something that I was entirely used to. Actually, I never had used feedback, like, ever. I've never used it. But then we all of a sudden had it like recorded in so many songs, and I had to translate that to like a live set. So I guess learning an entire new skill set, how to control feedback and do stuff like that, has been a challenge for me. And then favorite moment on the album was, there's a really cool moment on Left Behind, which I really enjoy. And I feel like you wouldn't know that it happens if you didn't point it out. And it's the third chorus, and we essentially like, what is that called when you split
the harmonic rhythm in half?
Split the harmonic rhythm in half. Yeah, that's a really cool moment. I've never heard it in a song ever. So I thought it was a unique thing that we did. So I always enjoy that moment whenever I hear it in recording.
In order to like make that chorus like pop, we like cut the time that each chord plays in half. So yeah, if it's really subtle and most people probably wouldn't hear it, but like the melody doesn't change, but the chords underneath are going twice as fast. So it just helps to like really propel into what that next
going from like 4/4 to cut time, to use like a kind of like a concert band analogy almost, like where it doesn't feel like the rhythm has changed or like the meter has changed, but how you're counting it and how you're changing the chords and notes has changed. That's really cool.
It's kind of just like Stanley Kubrick-esque kind of like, I don't know why I feel uncomfortable right now, but I do, you know, like I don't know why. Yeah.
For me, I think my favorite moment in the album, it's a tie between two, and they're both in Castles. That second verse, that break where we have the Oz, and just like a spaced out Evan's doing a really cool riff on the guitar, and we have those like reverby, hollow sounding vocal melody. For me, that's like, it just gives me a goosebump still sometimes. It just hits me. It sounds great. I love it's just beautiful to me. And then I also love the final build-up into the last chorus of Castles. The slide that Evan does on the guitar is like angels whispering in my ear. Like every time I hear it, I'm like, man, that's awesome. And it's just a beautiful moment from a beautiful song. It's the fantastic finish of a really cool song with a great message. But yeah, so aside from that, I think the biggest challenge, Andrew, ironically, is the Logos chorus. That was a beast. That, again, I can't emphasize this enough. That song sounds nothing like it did a year and a half ago. That one changed a lot, and we spent a ton of time, way more than we should have, but to no one's fault, on that chorus, getting it to work. There was a lot of back and forth with that chorus. John got mad at me a couple times, but we figured it out. And it ended with us sitting cross-legged in a circle in the studio, writing down lyrics and figuring out how the hell we're going to make this thing work. And by the grace of God and Jack's beautiful hand, we figured it out, and it came together. And it's great to hear things like what Andrew said, where it's a special moment for him, and stuff like that makes it worth it. But yeah, that was that we got put through the ringer on that one, but it worked out, I think. Hopefully, did it work out, Wes? You like it?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you as a band feel like it worked, I think that's more important than just my dumbass ears hearing something. Be like, yeah, that sounds cool. But I'm inclined to agree.
I think I had two favorite moments as well. One being the sax solo at the end of
Hell yeah.
that drop in my tempo to just like I don't know. I feel like it sealed the theme of space that we were kind of shooting for. It felt like you were just like floating through the stars. Super cool moment. And I'm kind of shocked that we went through with it. Honestly, sometimes I thought Zach would have shot it down.
All right, we can get into that.
I think the other favorite moment, back to Logotherapy, that song it's nothing like it was when I joined the band. And in the third chorus, there's a little taste of what the original riff used to be in the bass line.
Oh yeah.
And it's such like a little like paying respects to what it once was.
Yeah,
And
like
then
that
to
moment
Lugo.
too.
And I think that was also Jack's idea.
Yeah.
I think he was like playing through something and kind of just did it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's got to happen.
Mhm.
And then I guess the challenge for me was when I joined the band, I was playing bass, and when Andrew joined, he hopped on bass, and I had one of the second guitar parts, and it's just like finding how me and Evan work together and how I fit between Evan's rhythm playing and John on the synths, his pads. Like, are we stepping on each other? Things like that. Just figuring out how I fit in the puzzle once again. But shit, I think it's I think we're doing all right.
Yeah. I mean, you put on an album. That's something in and of itself. Yeah, cool. So, just for anyone listening at home that has not checked out the album, it's called Revelations. It's been out since July, so it's very much available for streaming and purchase on Bandcamp, I believe. So check it out. Looking forward and kind of, I guess, even kind of including the few months since the album was released and leading up to now when we're talking, you've been able to play at least, I think, a handful of shows just kind of from perusing social media. But where's the band heading now? Where are you? Where's the band headed next? I guess what does the future hold, and what are you kind of aiming towards? I think I saw something about like a show coming out pretty soon. So if you want to mention that or any shows I might be missing, feel free to shout those out now. But even outside of just gigs, which are very much a one-time thing, where is the band heading now as a fully formed 5-piece on the heels of a debut album?
We're hoping you could tell us. No, we like you said, we played a couple shows. We played a sold out show at 7th Street with Colin Bracewell and Dury, and
Right. Okay, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
that was such a fun night, man. To have your first show back, be a full crowd at 7th Street, nonetheless, it was beautiful. But we do have another gig at 7th Street coming up next week, Wednesday, September 29th. And we're pumped about that as well, playing with Josh Sky and Human, and both very talented groups of musicians. But as far as direction, I think we're going to continue on gigging when we can. And we just started a couple weeks ago our first writing session. And we're trying to, I mean, we always have little things at practice, little jams and ideas. But we did a full session for the first time a couple weeks ago. And LP2 is what we're focusing on aside from gigs, and we'll let you know in another 2 years when we
Yeah, barring a second pandemic or just a continued first one, but yeah.
Yeah, we've already got the 4-month apart single scheduled set that you'll hear single in 2 years. No, it's a lot of just hitting reset kind of. Like a lot of people, I think so.
Yeah, kind of a fresh start in a way. Very cool.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to that.
For sure.
Sorry. Yeah, were you talking?
No, go ahead. Don't apologize.
All right, sorry everybody. Well, okay. So what I was wanting to say was that we really the last show at 7th Street was so, I think, monumental in several ways, and I think like one of the ways was we created such a great relationship with Colin Bracewell and Dirty, and we met. I remember like Colin Bracewell and I would meet, like we met like 3 weeks before the show even happened, and we were like, how do we get tickets out? How do we make this night magical? And then we started collaborating. We called Austin Dury from Dury, and there was just like all this like just collaboration before the show even happens, and I don't see that a lot, and I've never done it before, and it was just a new experience of how shows can be played, where all these bands are creating relationships with each other and promoting together and lifting each other up and constantly commenting on each other's posts and all that stuff, and just like really building momentum and sharing fans and all those kinds of things. So where I want to see the band go as far as playing shows and stuff is to continue to just like make relationships with people, like deep relationships. And we've already got, and we can't tell you about the next show, or can we? I don't guess we can.
This will be on the record, so no pressure to say anything you don't want to share in advance.
Well, we've got a really fun show coming up, and we've not released it yet, but it's going to be in November, and we've already got like this whole like concept about how to promote it, and we collaborated with another band to do that, and we may have played with them in the past. So anyway, that's coming. But yeah, anyway, just creating like really deep relationships and like that kind of thing. So
very cool. Yeah, I'm sure if anyone has been following the band, will stay tuned or see when that gets announced, whenever that may be, and see what that'll unfold into. Cool. I always love ending interviews with the same question, just like I start them kind of with the same question. As people who are all members of, I guess, the quote unquote Minneapolis scene, just as musicians who play and write music here in the Twin Cities, you've, I'm guessing, been interacting with a lot of other bands and musicians. So what have been some of your recent favorite local bands or artists that you've been just kind of tuning into? And even if it's just something or someone that's new to you, just love to spread the love, I guess, with a lot of the other really cool bands that we have here in this little city we call hometown. I always give people a second to pull up their Spotifys or their Apple Musics if they need to here, but just, some shout outs.
Oh man, I love this question. I love our local scene so much. So probably my favorite bands. Well, Bugsy is a really good one. I'm friends with Griff, and we were neighbors for the past 2 years. So that was, yeah. We live in the same building, and we can get some time. So yeah, Bugsy is super fun. I love their music to death. I love Marmalade is really cool. We just talked about Marmalade and how cool they are. We love Immaculate Beings, Vile, Gully Boys.
Gully Boys.
I just saw them on Saturday.
Yeah.
At Mortimer's?
Yeah, Mortimer's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was literally there. I don't think we recognized each other. Hell yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many good ones.
No one's feeling excluded because there's, like you said, so many good ones. Too many to list.
Yeah, Static Panic. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
I like Bro.
There's none left.
I actually run like a little local music playlist, and I'm just constantly adding bands, and it's so fun.
I'd say my favorite is between two. I really like Dury. I really like their sound. I think it's something that's been missing for a while, and the nostalgia of it is pretty cool for me personally. Aside from that, I've been a fan of Why Not for quite a while. We played back in my old band in college with Brian. We actually had them come down or up to Fargo for a show, and they were, 15, 16, something like that.
Very young.
Yeah, and they were just shredding out there, and I was like, "Holy shit, these guys got something."
They were wearing onesies.
They were wearing onesies. I was like, "This is great!"
Oh my goodness.
And where they started and where they are now, such a talk about a spectrum of music. Super cool, all really talented. They were all really good dudes, and I've been a fan of theirs for a while. Yeah. Also, I really like Hippocampus, but I don't know. They're too big to be local now.
Yeah, that's a bit of a normie take. I'm not gonna lie. No, I'm kidding.
Normie.
Yeah, that me.
Andrew?
I really liked Derry as well. I was introduced to them at our last show at the entry. I thought they were really cool. It's just really interesting sound in like all the best ways too. And like nostalgic indie pop, is that what they call it? Right?
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah, that sounds right.
most perfect I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then another artist, I was just looking up on my phone a second ago, but he hasn't come up with anything since like 2019. But I miss Nookie Jones. I think their stuff is absolutely awesome, like R&B, neo soul sort of thing. But
You showed me them probably in 2019.
they're so good.
There's one from Minneapolis.
Yeah, they're so good. Their keyboard player, I don't know his name, but you're the greatest. And listen to
If
their-
you're listening,
He's probably listening.
Yeah.
keyboards from Nookie Jones.
That's what I didn't know. He's great.
He's already listening.
Come back.
Yeah, my favorites, I've got to say Dury also.
Yeah.
Coyote Kid also has Austin Dury in it.
Yes,
Just
they're still a band,
yeah.
right? Because they put out
What is
their really cool album in like 2019 or 2020, but Austin's been focusing on Dury obviously for the last like year or so. But I guess
Yeah,
brief tangent.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're continuing and will come back.
yeah. I mean, just I saw their show recently. It was amazing live, and just their fans are die hard, and it's so cool to see them have such a fine niche. And Dury also, New Primals
Oh yeah,
blows my mind.
so cool.
Blows my mind. I caught their last show at Mortimer's before they left to Seattle. I was going to catch them this weekend, but something came up. And that night was so hard this last Saturday because Juana Bianca was playing like Amsterdam, which, by the way, Juana Bianca, big new favorite.
Same.
Awesome. Well, I was going to ask. Juana Bianca played your show at Full House, right?
Because they're
That's-
very recent favorites. I caught them opening, I think, for Monica LaPlante. I saw them at 7th Street like a month ago and just knocked my socks off. They're a really, really sick new band.
Yeah. Haley's awesome. And like we've been doing a lot of back and forth, and I'm trying to set up some shows in the near future with them.
We've been talking about them for a month or two now.
Mhm.
They've been brought up for people to collaborate with for sure.
Yeah. Like Sludge Pop. Like, yes.
I just thought of Early Eyes too. How did I not think of Early Eyes?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah. I also wanted to shout out National Park Service.
Oh,
Their
come
new
on.
album-
Boo. They suck.
Dude, Sage lives at Highlight House, right?
Yes, I do know that.
Yeah, their new album. Oh man, I listened to it so much, and it was really a treat. And then Keep for Cheap was great.
Yeah, new single coming from them.
Alien
Very
Book
exciting.
Club. Yeah, Alien Book Club. They hosted us at the Astro Lounge one
Oh,
time.
cool.
Love them. They're so cool. Their music is so zany. And Bloodwire Angel is really cool. I'm just gonna stop.
Let's just say we're just-
Okay.
You might as well just be scrolling through like our past podcast guests at this point. No.
I'm just obsessed. I'm obsessed.
They're all so good.
We love the local scene. And I do have to do one more shout out, and that's Careful Gaze. Gabe
Oh my
Reason from Careful
gosh.
Gaze. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. They're so cool. Preston, Gabe, I don't know the rest of them, but I should. I love
Aslan is
them.
one of the other ones, and I think they've added recent members, so I'm feeling a
Yeah.
little ashamed too.
Yeah, but they're amazing and so sweet. And so welcoming, and you don't always get that in Minnesota. So it's, as like me from West Virginia, like it's so beautiful when it happens. You get people that like want to connect and collaborate and create together. So
Yeah, no, definitely some of the sweetest guys I've met in Minneapolis.
That's
Love
awesome.
Careful Gaze.
Yeah.
Did we miss
There's just a
anybody? Were there any last minute shout outs? I feel like we've covered like
Well,
most bands.
I feel like there's gonna be like 2 bands that we left out, and
I'm
they're
gonna
gonna
be
have
so mad when I do.
Prince.
Oh,
Okay.
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 I saw you
Oh,
last
that
week.
How did we forget Prince? Oh my-
I know it came out in July, but congratulations. That's a huge thing just for any band to do, and you have a lot to be proud of. Congrats on the shows. That's super sick. Check out Revelations. Like I said before, it's on any streaming service. It's on Bandcamp if you want to shoot the guys a few bucks. Check out some of their future shows, and thanks again. This was a blast.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
September 29th.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.